I finally got around to playing the Black Ops 6 campaign, and let me tell you, what a ride this was. I'm breaking down what I like and don't like about it, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Also, from this point out, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't played the campaign yet and you don't want to know what happens, go play it and come back. If you're not too bothered, then you've been warned, and carry on. The campaign opens with real-life footage of the end of the Cold War, and shows snapshots of the team that you'll play as throughout the game, setting the scene for what's to come. We get a cutscene of some of the team being interrogated by Livingston, the main man at the CIA, over a field op. Marshall starts talking about the mission and we flash back to the team attempting to capture a guy called Alawi from a convoy. We get to Alawi and it turns out that he'd already struck a deal with the CIA for him to be taken from Kuwait, although that deal wasn't with us. The Pantheon, this game's newest enemy organisation, shows up and puts a spanner in the works, meaning we'll have to fight our way out. Now, this might just be the British in me because we don't really have guns here, but we've just taken Alawi prisoner, we've blown up his convoy, and now we're giving him a weapon. Maybe not the smartest of decisions in my opinion. It was also during this fight that I realised that Call of Duty, and in particular the Black Ops 6 campaign, still has crazy grenades. I was also playing on regular, and I died to a grenade. I'm absolutely washed at this point. We work through the waves of enemies to the pickup point when the sexiest man in Call of Duty history shows up. For context, Soap from the original Modern Warfare series is probably the second sexiest man in Call of Duty. I mean, look at that beautiful mother. Adler decides that Alawi's time on this earth is over, despite Livingston wanting him alive, but he gives us a message for Woods.
Tell him Bishop takes Rook.
We then take Adler prisoner before blowing up a helicopter in a sequence that Michael Bay would be proud of. Livingston suspends the team from the CIA and Woods then acts on the Bishop takes Rook message. It turns out that the message relates to a former KGB safe house in Bulgaria named the Rook. For those who have played Black Ops 6 multiplayer, the Rook is actually the payback map. From here onwards, the Rook acts as a safe house for the team and the full area is explorable. It really fleshes out the house from the payback map. We can kind of do things like have Fallout style conversations with the different characters on the team, therefore building on the story. You don't have to do this, you kind of can get the gist of the campaign story without doing all of this, but if you want a little bit more background and information about what's going on, then you can interact with them. You can also find money throughout the campaign levels which you can spend while roaming around this free area. You can buy weapon blueprints, you can buy perks for the campaign, and there's also a lot of hidden puzzles as well, which are kind of fun to explore and do. Also, this area is home to the investigation board, which is how we select our main campaign missions and go on those missions. Much like Cold War when this was introduced, it's a great system to have and it's great to have back in Black Ops 6. Top tip from me for this area is that with the Jackal being the best SMG in Warzone right now, for $3,000 in the campaign currency, you can buy a Jackal blueprint, which means you will have it permanently unlocked in Warzone. And if you're like me and didn't buy the Vault edition of the game, then it's kind of handy to have. Despite having a lot of fun exploring the home base, it was time to expand the team and we were sent to Avalon to track down a former assassin named Savati. We agreed to help her assassinate a target and we have the option to either run and gun this part of the mission or do it sneakily. Now it's this mission right here that kind of sets the scene for how the Black Ops 6 campaign will go, as in giving you, the player, the choice to do whatever you want and tackle the missions how you want to tackle them. For me, I opted to do this mission quietly and stealthily because I wanted to test those mechanics and see what they were like. However, if you really wanted to, you can just run and gun it. We take out the target with a shot that Call of Duty 4's Captain Macmillan will be proud of, and we quickly make it back to the start point to link up with Sev. Our next task to win her over is to hit some of the big members of the Guild crime faction, where we have to intentionally get ourselves caught. We get into the room with the bosses and we get the iconic Call of Duty slow-mo pistol sequence. A run and gun chase takes place in the nearby streets, resulting in all the crime bosses being killed and a big car crash. While we've been out playing Hitman, Marshall has been busy recruiting Felix, a former Stasi enforcer who acts as the team's tech guy. Despite imprisoning Adler earlier, it turns out that we actually need him, so a plan is hatched to rescue him from a CIA black site which is hidden beneath Washington DC's Central Station. In order to do so, we go undercover as a reporter at a political rally for a man who will become quite well known in US politics. A senator alongside Bill Clinton has security clearance to access the black site, but we need a photo of his eyes to do so. Once again, it is up to the player on how to do this, as we are given 3 options. We can go after a note that the senator was given when he arrived. We can look into rumours that the politician is up to some extramarital activities. Yeah, those extramarital activities don't relate to that politician. Not yet anyway. I think that's probably about 7 years down the line in this storyline. Or we can look into Senator McKenna's rumoured links to organised crime. I opted to go and chat up his wife, who reveals that the Senator is having an affair with one of his staff members. We overhear the staff member planning to blackmail the Senator over the affair, and because we're upstanding citizens, we put a stop to this, and the Senator's wife ensures that we get a photo of McKenna. Next up, we have to get to the roof to access the black site. For the life of me, I couldn't work out how to sneak past these guards. I was constantly feeling it. It turns out that if you just read the map properly, these curtains are not a wall. You can actually go through them and sneak around them. After sneaking past yet more guards, we rappel into the black site entrance, only to find all hell is breaking loose as the Pantheon have got there first. Thankfully, we save Adler and then have to fight our way out of the black site. Just for context, in case you haven't played the campaign, this is still the 3rd campaign mission of this game. It is insanely long. We managed to get out of the black site and fight our way through the station before hopping on 2 motorbikes for what I can only say is an awesome action sequence. Thankfully, we escape and the 3rd campaign mission finally comes to an end, but not before we get put right at the top of Interpol's most wanted list. Despite this mission being incredibly long, the options for how you tackle the objectives in the lead up to freeing Adler are for me what Call of Duty has needed for years now. Infinity Ward tried to do it in the Modern Warfare campaigns by giving us a little bit more free choice of how we tackle those objectives. However, I feel like Treyarch have absolutely smashed it out of the park this year. I mean, we have, 3 options to do before we even get into the black site, and then when we're in the black site, we can either run and gun it or stealth it. For me, it's this kind of freedom that Call of Duty is, without a shadow of a doubt, crying out for. Now that freedom doesn't stop as we head off to Iraq to link up with the SAS in the hope that they'll help us get into one of Saddam Hussein's palaces. Open world missions have featured in the last few Call of Duty campaigns, and once again, this style of mission makes an appearance in Black Ops 6. We get given a map that wouldn't look out of place on a Fallout Pip-Boy, and we are told to go and destroy 3 missile launchers. Now, destroying missile sites or mortar sites in Call of Duty games is nothing new. I think we've been doing it for around about 20 years now. It's very much a staple objective in any Call of Duty campaign, but how Treyarch have set this up, for me personally, is a touch of genius. Now, Infinity Ward tried with the Modern Warfare games to create some sort of open world kind of, you just do the objective how you want. However, for me, those missions felt very empty, very long, very just pointless, very gimmicky. However, Treyarch has done something that Infinity Ward should have done a few years ago, and that is, if you wanted to play this mission and you're in the open world, you can just go destroy all 3 launcher sites. You don't have to do any side objective, and that's fair enough if you want to do that. However, Treyarch has made it so that by doing these side objectives, you actually get more equipment to help you achieve the main objective and make the main objective easier. So, for example, if you save these soldiers at this crashed helicopter site, you get access to an airstrike, which refreshes over time and can help you take out the main objectives a lot easier. Or you can take out loads of SAM sites, which then gives you access to a chopper gunner. And the best thing is that in the next mission, when you go and attack Saddam's palace, these sort of upgrades that you've gone and collected throughout this open world are available to you in that mission as well, meaning that it makes this mission and the next mission a lot easier. However, you don't have to do it. That's what the beauty about these optional objectives are. They do help improve the gameplay experience, but you don't have to do them. And for me, this was something that these open world missions that Call of Duty has really been trying to push on us for the last few years have not actually come to fruition, and I feel like it's actually in a good place for once. After helping out the SAS, they agree to help us attack Saddam's palace as we have intel to show that something important is hidden there. We run and gun our way through and discover that the Pantheon have access to a biological weapon called the Cradle. It becomes a race against time to get out before the palace is bombed, so we fight our way to the roof. When we get to the roof, the Pantheon start bringing troops in via helicopter, and well, these boys clearly do not know that I've got dark matter launchers in Black Ops multiplayer. Therefore, I'm an absolute professional at shooting things out of the air, and they stood no chance. Felix discovered that the Cradle was developed in a facility in Kentucky, so we head there with 7 Marshall to see what we can find. Now, I've pretty much played every Call of Duty campaign, and what follows in this next mission is probably the scariest Call of Duty campaign mission that we've ever had. I'm not a fan of horror games, and my sweet lord, we were in for a ride with this one. We get separated from the others and have to lone wolf this mission, during which we discover that we were once a test subject at this facility, although this storyline rarely gets fleshed out throughout the rest of the game. Or if it did, I certainly didn't pay attention to it. Anyway, this once again becomes sort of an open world, open choice mission where we have to find 4 keycards to gain access to a lift. In order to do so, we have to fight some iconic Call of Duty Zombies mini-bosses, including an Abomination, 2 Manglers, and a Mimic, as well as some zombies along the way. Also, the jump scares that I got from these mannequins during this fight sequence made me question my life in more ways than one. We gather all the keycards and face a final boss in the form of a disciple before we are brought back into reality by Sev and Marshall. Now, the intel that we recovered from the biological weapons facility shows that Harrow is actually a part of the bad guys, however was our good boss at the start of the game. For me, Call of Duty is doing this way too often now. It's going very, very thin. And to be honest, I can probably now play another Call of Duty campaign in a year's time and go, you know what, that person's our boss, probably going to be bad. I feel like we need to sort of switch up the whole main enemy, sort of how they're revealed at this point. More intel shows that a security box in an Avalon casino could be hiding something, so the team squad up and all play a key role in making sure that we get to that box. We do a number of tasks such as playing poker and pretend to fix casino machines to hack into security systems. You know, standard stuff, to help us reach the safety deposit box which contains a dossier before escaping Pantheon forces once again. I think this mission setting is well done. The casino looks very, very good and very, very detailed in terms of the artwork. However, there's nothing groundbreaking here. By this point, I will say that the stealth aspect of the game was growing very, very thin with me, and I was crying out for a run and gun kind of mission at this point. The dossier shows that the Pantheon were running money through the casino to help finance their dealings, and it has highlighted a doctor's location in Iraq who was responsible for the chemical weapon. We team up with Adler to storm a rather run-down airport when NPC suggests that we do this. Thankfully, Adler is a man after my own heart and tells him where to go, and we finally have a run and gun mission on our hands. This mission gets even more fun when we get to drive a tank and shoot at the plane to stop Dr. Gusev from escaping. With some persuasion, he reveals the Pantheon's plans and the location of the weapon, and for those who know their Black Ops history, it's in a familiar place. We take control of Sev, who is doing the sneaky sneak around Vuda, and again, we are presented with a number of different choices on how to tackle this part of the mission. Once again, I was pretty bored with the stealth aspect of these missions, so I kind of just talked my way through these objectives, which was pretty easy to do, really. Once the security systems are all down, we storm Vuda with a chopper gunner and manage to take Harrow into custody. Back at the Rook, Harrow is given some sort of truth serum and begins to trip balls, in which we find out her backstory. To cut a long story short, the CIA had her parents killed and she's out for revenge. The mission cuts between Harrow's major trip and us defending the Rook from the Pantheon, who have found out where we are thanks to a tracking device in Harrow's arm. Now, this is pretty much the only part of the campaign that I didn't really care for all that much. For some reason in the Black Ops franchise, this whole sort of mind manipulation, tripping balls aspect is becoming all too frequent now, and for me it's growing very, very stale. I know that Call of Duty typically will always go back to what works because, hey, you only got games to sell, I get that, but trying to freshen up once in a while maybe wouldn't hurt. Through Harrow tripping out, it is revealed that the Pantheon has placed the cradle in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. It is placed there so Livingston can be removed from his role due to the intelligence failure of an attack caused by a CIA-funded weapon on home soil. Harrow reveals that she's got eyes on Livingston's job, which will give Pantheon full control of the CIA. Harrow almost escapes in a heli, but we chase her down and put a stop to her once and for all. The campaign closes with a cutscene with Livingston telling the team that he needs them back in Avalon to work in the shadows against the Pantheon. A mysterious figure is seen hacking a CIA computer, and that brings the Black Ops 6 campaign to an end. In terms of a Call of Duty campaign, you can tell that this one's had time and resources dedicated to it, as opposed to others that we've had recently. I'm looking at you, Modern Warfare 3. Now, we are 20 plus years almost into Call of Duty campaigns, so props to Treyarch for trying to keep this one very, very fresh. And I will say that there is some elements to it that they've done really, really well with. I will say that, as I've already mentioned, that towards the end of it, I was kind of growing very sort of wary and sort of a bit old with the old stealth stuff. However, on reflection and sort of like writing this up and sort of like looking at this as a whole review, I kind of get why the stealth aspect is such a key part of this game, because this is not like you're acting like a normal soldier anymore. You literally are acting totally off the books, totally off record. You know, your team isn't supposed to be known by anyone, and you're kind of operating within the shadows. So I see why the stealth aspects are there, but for me, I just want a sort of a Michael Bay aspect, just action-packed thriller of a Call of Duty campaign. That's kind of what I'm used to. So this one being a bit more sort of chill and stealthy. It was good to mix it up, but I feel like there's a balance in there somewhere. As with every Treyarch campaign, the setting for Black Ops 6 for me was absolutely perfect, especially with it being a follow-up to Cold War. Now, I love Cold War being set in the 80s. I thought the aesthetic of that campaign was very good. So being able to continue that on in the early 90s for Black Ops 6 was, for me, just the perfect setting for it, in my opinion. I feel that the story was very easy to follow, even though it was kind of obvious that you were going to get betrayed by someone at the CIA. It was just a question of who. However, each mission you never kind of really knew what to expect. Obviously going from like open world missions to sort of like horror-esque missions. You're always on your toes about what was coming next. And for me, that's what a Call of Duty campaign needs. For me, the Black Ops 6 campaign was one of the best that we've had in years. And I'm very much looking forward to see where they're going with it. Obviously, in the final cutscene of the game, we found out the team were getting sent to Avalon, and I presume that the storyline would have continued on in Warzone, much like Modern Warfare 2019 did. However, they've obviously shelved Avalon in favour of bringing Verdansk back in the spring, so I don't think we're going to see any progression with the storyline now until probably autumn next year, maybe, if they do continue with another Black Ops game. So hopefully they continue it and make it really, really good. One minor sticking point for me to end on was the fact that this wasn't released a week early ahead of the full game release, and very much like what Infinity Ward did with Modern Warfare 2 and 3. I feel like this campaign deserves its own moment to shine. For me, there's a reason why it's taken me so long to play it, is because I dove straight into multiplayer to level guns for Warzone, which a lot of players will have done, and because of that, they'll have skipped out on doing the campaign. I mean, they might eventually get around to it, like what I've done. However, I feel like this deserved its own moment to shine. If we do get a follow-up to this campaign in autumn next year, I pray that they release it first, ahead of the full game dropping. Either way, I'm glad I've finally been able to sit down and play this campaign, and once again, Treyarch have proven why they are, without a shadow of a doubt, the best at doing Call of Duty campaigns.